Hi, and welcome to lesson number 25 of the Fundamentals of Slovenian Grammar course. So, in the last two lessons, we had a look at the present tense of the verb to be. And we said it's an irregular verb, very irregular, more irregular than the usual irregular verb in Slovenian, because with the usual irregular verb, we said the endings always stay the same and that they're still kind of predictable. The verb to be is very irregular. It's like jaz sem, ti si, on je. Those we just have to remember by heart. So the verb to be is very irregular in that regard, but it's also irregular when it comes to negating it. So we do not just say ne plus the verb, like ne grem, ne delam, ne vem, and so on, but rather we, rather than saying ne, we say ni, and then we make one word out of the, rather than two words, we have one word. And today we will learn about two more verbs that behave like that for a total of three. So there are three verbs that are exceptions that are irregular when it comes to present tense negation. And those two are very similar to the verb to be. So here we have our jaz sem, ti si, on, ona je, mi dva sva, vi dva sta, ona dva sta, mi smo, vi ste, oni so. This is our verb to be, sem, si, je. Those are, we have to learn them kind of by heart. Then sva, sta, sta, and sva, sta, sta, and smo, ste. Those are pretty intuitive. And then so is again, we just have to remember so. So the infinitive stem kind of changes to the s. Obviously, this doesn't always hold true, but you can think of it, of the stem kind of being s, and then it's sva, sta, sta, smo, ste. At least there it makes sense, and it kind of makes sense in jas as well. It should just be an s, m. There's an extra e there, but it's still kind of like some. So these are the most difficult ones to remember, and the other ones kind of make sense. Now, this is how we would expect to negate this verb, we said, but it is wrong. And we can't just put a ne in front of it like all other verbs. In fact, it's nisem, nisi, ni, nisva, nista, nista, nismo, niste, ni, so. So we said the formula is ni plus the verb, and you make one word out of it. And we said the exception is he, she. And we called the third person singular of the verb, of the present tense of the verb to be, the black sheep of the family, both in the affirmative and in the negative form. Je is very weird, and ni is also very weird. So, and we said it's that's well worth remembering for future lessons when we will be talking about word order in Slovenian. The fact that he, she starts with a J rather than an S plays a role with word order, but that'll come later. So ni is definitely the exception. So verb negation, usually it's just ne plus the verb form, ne delam, ne razumem, ne govorim, and the two together form one unit, even though there is a space in between. That again is important when it comes to word order. Now, irregular verb negation biti, we have ni instead of ne, just one word, nisem, nisi, nisva, and he, she is an exception altogether. Ni instead of ni, je. It should be following the pattern or the formula, it should be nije. Now, we have two more verbs like that. So we have to be, which is biti, sem, nisem. Then we have to have, which is imeti. It's imam, nimam, and to want, hoteti, hočem, nočem. So, all three are irregular in the regular sense, in the usual sense. So all three of the verbs are irregular in the usual sense because it's not bim, bish, bi, it's not imem, imish, ime, and it's not hotem, hotesh, hote, but the stem changes. So the stem goes kind of completely crazy with biti, it's just very irregular, but imeti and hoteti are predictably irregular. So ime changes to ima, and hote changes to hoče, hoče. So then we have imam, imash, ima, and hočem, hočeš, hoče. And now we will show how to negate those two verbs. And you can see that these three are arguably the most important verbs in pretty much any language on the planet. So that's why it's so important to know about this. To be, to have, and to want are among the most important verbs that we could learn. So with BT, it's irregular in the usual sense. It's some instead of bim. It should be bim, bish, bi. And then also the negation is regular. So we have nisam instead of ne sam. And the third person singular is very irregular. Both, so we have ye and ni instead of nie. Now the same thing, so we're talking about irregular negation with imeti, which is to have. It is irregular in the usual sense. It's imam rather than imim. So the ime changes to ima. There's just a vowel change. And the negation is also irregular. This is a irregular negation, nisam instead of, well, this slide is wrong. It should say nimam instead of ne imam. Nimam instead of ne imam. And change in pronunciation, this is also quite important. In the affirmatives, it's stressed imam, imash, ima, but then the stress changes to the first syllable. It's nimam, nimash, nima. Anyway, the second slide, the second point should say ne nimam rather than ne imam. It's not ne imam, it's nimam. And then we have hoteti. So it's also irregular. It's hochem instead of hotem. So the stem changes. And the irregular negation is nochem instead of ne hochem. It's not ne hochem, but rather it's just nochem. And so to negate it, we just replace the H with an N. So that's how we negate that verb. So if we go through all of these, sam, nisam, si, nisi, je, ni, sva, nisva, sta, nista, sta, nista, smo, nismo, ste, niste, and so, niso. And of course, the weirdest one is ni, and also ye is kind of the black sheep of the family. All the other ones are S words. Then we have to have or imeti. Ime changes to ima. Imam, nimam, imash, nimash, ima, nima, imava, nimava, imata, nimata, imata, nimata, imamo, nimamo, imate, nimate, and imayo, nimayo. And then we have to want, which is hoteti. It's irregular in the usual sense. Hote changes to hoche. Hochem, nochem, hochesh, nochesh, hoche, noche, hocheva, nocheta, hocheta, nocheta, hocheta, nocheta, hochemo, nochemo, hochete, nochete, and hochejo, nochejo. So that is it. Those are the only three verbs in Slovenian that are exceptions when it comes to negating them in the present tense. Rather than ne sam, which is wrong, it's just nisam. Rather than ne imam, it's nimam. And rather than ne hochem, it's nochem. All other verbs are negated. We negate all other verbs just by putting a ne in front of the verb, and there is a space in between. But even then, the two count as one unit. I hope that clears up the verbs to be, to have, and to want. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully see you in the next lesson. Take care.